Hey guys, this is Saturn Dave, and doing a little documentation video just to show Puyo-Puyo-san working over VoIP, NetLink over, or X-band over VoIP. Let's see here. You ready? Now this is not supposed to work because the original games required a server. They'd reach out to a server, and then basically it would broker the communication between the two players. But Joe, SEGARPGFAN, who has joined us on the podcast before, on the SHIRO podcast, he has hacked or basically patched out the game images, at least for Puyo-Puyo-san, and he's done it for a couple other games, Shadows of the Tusk. And basically he's made it so that it just ignores that. It bypasses the search for a server and just goes direct dial. So I'm basically waiting for a call right now, and we're gonna see if he can dial. So I'm messaging him right now, just let him know I'm waiting. Oh, there we go. Okay, so it's answering the phone. So he's dialed me. And once it brings up the communications, you'll see kind of how... Alright, so we're connecting here. An opponent has been found. Alright, so he's the master player. He's got his, this is basically an exploit. So his username is set to MP, which stands for master player, and then the 4 nines basically tells the modem to dial an IP address. And then I'm set to slave player. So I have SP as the start of my username. And I just went with Spoonman to be clever. But anyway, you could make it Sputnik or... anything else that you want, starting with SP, which signifies that you are the slave player. You're going to be the one dialed, and the master player is going to do the dialing. Basically, all we had to do was just modify the dialing plan in the VoIP adapter. So if you follow the basic guide, the original VoIP guide for the US NetLink games, all you'd have to do is just add a tiny little instruction. Maybe the elephant. And we've messed around with the jitter settings, which just kind of helps tell the Saturn or tell the NetLink to kind of receive packets a little later than they're expected. We've had to mess around with that. At first we had the jitter setting to low and it was completely unplayable. We went medium and that was good. And then after that we tried to up it to setting high and it became unplayable again. So the tolerance is very low. It has to be just right to get these things synced up. And I'm going with the easy grandma setting because not only do I not play well at this game, but also because of the latency, and there is some significant latency, it becomes a little bit hard to play. And also Joe is actually he already beat me a couple times, so he's much better than I am at this. But the implications of this are amazing. This means that when we were talking like back in 2017 about how awesome would it be if we had all those Japanese X-band games on the Saturn playable. And I mean, there are a considerable amount of games that were compatible with X-band. So the cool thing is I have not purchased any special equipment. I didn't even have to buy Japanese X-band modem. Well, there was a little bit of a catching up that had to happen there. So I didn't even have to buy a Japanese X-band modem. No, I'm using the US NetLink modem, which has a max speed of 28 kilobits per second, and the Japanese modems were capped at 14 kilobits per second. Although these Japanese games are designed for 14 kilobits per second, and because I guess because the NetLink modem, the US NetLink modem works with it, I think that it just operates at the same, they sync up and they just both operate at the same max kbps. Sorry, trying to talk about technical stuff and play at the same time. Oh yeah, there's definitely some lag there going on. All right, let's see here. Yeah, you can tell by how much he's staying alive how good he is. I think he went standard difficulty, but yeah, when I was at normal difficulty, he just blew me away. So I had to do that so that I could talk to you guys too. But yeah, I'm not very decent at this game at all. Here, I'll go standard difficulty, and you'll see how poorly I do. So Joe has patched out Shadows of the Tusk. That's cool. He's tested all of this with a phone line simulator, and it was, oh, he's patched out Decathlete. So that was cool too. Now he has tested all of this with a phone line simulator, and it works perfect. Like I've seen the video, and there's like no perceivable lag. That's with 2 Saturns local, and then a phone line simulator just between them. So it almost operates like a link cable, basically. Not literally a link cable, but the performance is similar, you know, because there's no latency between. But to remind folks who maybe didn't listen, who forgot or didn't listen to the podcast that we released a couple years ago, it's been a while. What's happening here is data's coming in over the internet, right? So Joe's NetLink is essentially taking the data, turning it into audio, sending it out as audio over the analog phone line to his VoIP adapter, which is turning it back into data, sending it out over his router, over the internet. I'm receiving the data packets at my router, and then it's hitting my VoIP adapter, which is turning it back into audio, sending it as analog audio to the NetLink modem, and then that is basically changing it from analog audio back into data that the Saturn is interpreting. So all of those steps introduce considerable lag. So the fact that this is playable at all is kind of a miracle. I'm interested in playing Shadows of the Tusk, but I mean, I would be guessing at what I was doing because it's a lot of Japanese, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong. Maybe that's one of those English-friendly games, but last I checked, I thought it was a considerable amount of Japanese, and I'm not exactly sure what I would be doing. But yeah, there's actually there were a lot of these X-Band games released for Japan, and quite a few of them are English friendly, so it's exciting. Ah, that was a bad move. Kind of locked it off there. Come on. Even though I'm not good at Puyo Puyo, it's still a really fun, and it can be very fun and addictive. And I know some people who are really good at Puyo, so I know that some people are going to be really excited about this. Now, if you haven't purchased a VoIP adapter, one of those very specific models of Linksys VoIP adapter, which from my understanding also happen to have a pretty big amount of, or have a pretty large amount of fake clones out there, which I'm surprised that companies go out of their way to clone VoIP adapters, but there are some counterfeits out there on the market. But if you do own one of these VoIP adapters, great, you're good to go. If you don't, you may want to hold off, because I have heard that they are kind of messing around with another VoIP adapter, something that's a little more advanced perhaps, that might offer some performance advantages. I can't guarantee that it'll offer performance advantages, but I can guarantee that it's something that's being worked on. We have hit, and I heard my modem, I heard my NetLink modem click, and then it just kind of like, it basically dropped. So that's not good, but that's the first time that's happened. So I've hit considerable lag quite a few times, where the systems lose sync. You know, they get out of sync, and then they just kind of find each other again, and then play resumes. But I guess in that case, it was just so much that it caused it to disconnect, which is interesting. So just going to ask Joe if he wants to dial again. I could even try to dial him. If you guys haven't listened to the podcast, I think it was episode 4 or 5, Getting Your Saturn Online. Check out SEGASaturnShiro.com, and it'll redirect you to our Podiant account for the podcasts. And check out episode 5, I think. Getting Your Saturn Online. Joe was a guest. He was so kind to join us and explain how the whole VoIP thing works. And, you know, through just sheer determination, he's figured out a way to, you know, hack up these ROM or these game images so that you could basically force it to do what he wants it to do. And that's cool. You know, I guess there was, I'm looking into the games here and into the software. It looks like there was a built-in peer-to-peer. All right, well, he has to get going, because he's also a dad and he's got kids. So I totally understand. But anyway, that was cool. It was cool just testing this out and seeing that it works. So what this means for everybody is that fairly soon we'll be able to play a lot of these old Japanese X-Band games online over VoIP, and you guys are going to want to check out that podcast so you can kind of get a primer on the original NetLink games. There were 5 US NetLink games. Some of them work better than others, but they all work with this same Linksys VoIP adapter, a phone line, like a analog phone cable with just two a send and receive on it, and then yeah, like once all these images are patched, I'm sure he'll release them to the public, and then folks can download those and burn those or put them on their Rhea or Phoebe. And those of you who have Rhea or Phoebe, you basically have a region-free Saturn. So that works. Or you can patch the images with the Saturn region patcher so that they're US region. And you're going to need to do that because if you have a US NetLink modem plugged into your Saturn, you can't really have an action replay plugged in at the same time, making your Saturn region-free. So either you need a region-free mod or you need to use the Saturn region patcher software to patch the images to the US region or whatever region your Saturn is, so that you can use this functionality without having to worry about that. Okay, so it sounds like he's also we're gonna test out VF Virtual Fighter Remix at some point too. But anyway, we're just gonna call it quits for today. Thank you guys for checking this out, and until next time, just stay tuned. I'm sure that we'll talk more about this on the podcast. We'll probably try to have Zaiden and SEGARPGFAN on to discuss some of their plans. There's a lot of cool stuff coming up for the Saturn, and it's a very exciting time to be a Saturn fan. So if you guys are into online play, X-band, NetLink functionality, the future looks bright. So anyway, it's been Saturn Dave, just doing a little documentation video for posterity and just, proof of concept showing that this stuff does work, and it is playable depending on the game. So until next time, remember to play your Sega Saturns. Check out the Sega Saturn SHIRO podcast, and check us out on Facebook at facebook.com/play-SEGA-SATURN, and you can catch me at facebook.com/SEGA-SATURN-DAVE. Until next time, catch you later.